If you guys are interested in practical real-world advice when it comes to traveling through dangerous areas based on experience, let me know down below. Let's get on to the topic. Because of recent events, there are lots of young folks who are advocating self-defense for elderly individuals, posts that advocate being armed or carrying pepper spray. When you consider that it cost a elderly gentleman in San Francisco his life, you can see where this is going. However, after the experiences that I've gained devoting most of my adult life either helping or hurting people, I think we have to take a step back and look at the reality of the situation. If this wasn't their lifestyle or if they've never received training at all, it is simply not realistic to expect the elderly and the infirm to arm themselves in order to prevent an attack. I am not saying take no steps to ensure that you have the tools that you require, but don't give elderly people these items and treat them as if they're essentially self-defense talismans. They're not. I'm going to get into multiple reasons why. Now, of course, being armed is a good option. However, being competent at any weapon system for self-defense requires lots of competent training. And like I said, if they haven't been engaging in this behavior before these events, at this stage, it may not do them any good. At least the end results won't be what you expect. Let me explain. Overall health conditions related to an aging body, such as poor eyesight, arthritis, limited mobility due to a frozen limb or pain, you are not going to have this elderly individual fight back in any meaningful way. In fact, some sorts of resistance are going to end up hurting that individual more. In addition to that, with the reflex time being diminished, quick draws may not be a realistic option for a person in their 70s or 80s. And then there are other mental limitations as well that we have to consider, especially for an aging individual. Mental degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia mean that that person may not be in a coherent state. So we're going to talk about the unsexy side of self-defense that no one really wants to talk about or teach. Now, this is going to be one of the biggest skills that you can learn at any age. You have to learn what threat indicators from an individual or a group look like. It doesn't matter what culture, what area of the world you're in. These are functions that serve the fight or flight response in people. So the first one is going to be predatory gaze. That person is going to lock eyes directly on the target, either the target individual or the item that they're looking to steal. It's almost going to look like you've been made the center of somebody's world, but not in a good way. The second biggest behavior would be witness checking or lookout positioning. Movies sometimes get this right. The bad guy will go up to the good guy, "Hey man, what time is it?" Essentially what they're doing is making sure that anyone that's looking at your interaction isn't going to be able to identify them later on. If they're not working alone, they might have a lookout. The third is a little bit difficult, especially with the mess that we saw in 2020. People are wearing masks, and we've normalized that within society. In Asia, it was no big deal to see someone walking around with a medical mask, and I'm not here to talk about the efficacy of that behavior. But we've made it absolutely normal to not be able to see somebody's identity. We can have them covered up from head to toe. They could be wearing a hat with shades and a mask, and we won't even think twice about that. Before, if someone showed up to a bank looking this way, everyone would be on high alert. Not so much now. The guy could just be getting some food money. Now, if you grew up in a rough neighborhood, even in the US, this will sound very familiar to you. Make sure that the clothing is appropriate for the weather. It's 90 degrees and sunny outside and the guy is walking up to you wearing a sweater. That's a sign that maybe there's a little bit more that you are not able to see, which leads to another threat indicator. Hiding hands. The hands are going to tell you all about intent. Okay, if he's got something tucked in a pocket, that doesn't mean that it's just tucked in a pocket. What if he's palming a weapon to get ready to use on you? And like I said, if it's a hot environment and he's wearing a sweater and he's got his hands in the pockets, face is covered up, all of these signs are starting to create a larger picture of the entire scenario, and it's not looking too good. Especially when he starts doing the next one. They start drifting towards you. When a threat starts to do target drift, that means that they might have had all of this space to pass by on your right or left side, depending on where you're walking. Now all of a sudden, they're walking in line directly at you. You just want to be cognizant of all of these signs coming together. Generally, if you spot these warning signs soon enough, you can avoid an interaction or an altercation with this person entirely by either turning around or leaving the area or crossing the street. Now, if it looks like they're following you and they've definitely targeted you for some reason, duck into a store, make sure that you go somewhere that there are cameras. That's going to make it easier to identify people later on if something happens. You also want to be in a place where there are tons of witnesses because a lot of these guys have been stopped by bystanders, random business owners, by people on the street who saw something and said, I'm not going to let you fucking get away with it. So you want to be able to take the guy on, but if you can't take him on by yourself, it's a good idea to be around others who can potentially come to your aid. And at that point, if you were carrying something and it's legal for you to do so, ready yourself. This is the moment to do it because you've bought yourself enough time. This next tip, instead of focusing on the people, you want to focus on your surroundings. Your phone can wait. Take an honest assessment of your appearance. Don't go by what you used to look like or what you used to do. That doesn't matter. When it comes to aging, a lot of criminally minded younger folks don't necessarily see, hey, that's a guy with experience that can mess me up. To a criminal, an old person is an old person. As far as they're concerned, you are no longer a threat of any kind. You've become one of the softest targets in any society in the world. Now, why? That goes back to instinct. This is all primal stuff. If you look at how predators in the wild select their prey so that they can eat, they never assault the ones that can wound, that can cripple, that can kill them. They're going to go after the young, and they're going to go after the old and infirm. Now, this is the fourth important tip. Know your area. If you've lived in a certain city for a long time or a certain town, you will definitely know where the bad areas are. If you just moved there, learn to read the map. Where are the high crime areas? Avoid traveling there on foot or alone. That leads us to the biggest tip of all. Try to be constantly surrounded by others, especially younger or more able-bodied people. If you can take a buddy along, if you can take your niece, nephew, whoever, family member, somebody that's very trustworthy to accompany you, that would greatly increase your chances of not being targeted. The more the merrier. If you can get an entire group of younger people to accompany you throughout the day, that's even better. Not because they're afraid of justice reaching them quickly, they'd be more afraid of being identified later on. I just wanted to get this out there because I feel like this is something that's very overlooked when a lot of younger folks say we need to make sure that elderly people are not being attacked on the street, especially if it's an unprovoked attack. If you're younger and you're legally armed and you don't mind traveling with grandma while she does a few errands throughout her day, follow her. Your presence there is going to make more of an impact if she ever runs into any of these people who could pose a threat to her. We have each other, and that's our main deterrent. So while I do advocate the notion that an armed society is a polite society, and it most definitely is, we have to take a step back and get a little bit more realistic with people's individual capabilities. That's all I've got right now. I just wanted to talk about this because this is near and dear to me. If you've got elderly people in your life and you care about their safety, it's not just about getting them a weapon. It's about being there for them. If you see any of this activity going on, be one of those good Samaritans. Put a stop to it. You know that's exactly what you would want if it was your family member. That's it for today, guys. Be good. Stay safe. Have a good one.